Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Kassaye with The Pioneer. As many of you know, CSU faculty and staff recently reached a tentative agreement with the university system on Monday, January 22nd, after just one day of a planned 5-day strike for higher wages and longer parental leave, among other requests. I am joined here today with filmmaker, journalist, producer, and director at Long Memory Productions, CFA East Bay Lecturer Council representative, and broadcast lecturer for the Department of Communication here at CSU East Bay, Professor Kevin Pina. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you for being here with me today, Professor Pina. I'd like to start by mentioning that you were one of the CSU East Bay faculty members out on the front lines when the deal was made that Monday, January 22nd. Could you please describe what it was like being there on that Monday in the rain alongside your colleagues, knowing that all 23 campuses were also holding demonstrations? Like, what was the general feeling out there on that day?
It was raining heavily and a very healthy picket line by the time I showed up. It was a very festive, wonderful atmosphere. I was coordinating behind the scenes. We had a bunch of stuff that we had to do. We had assembly person, Liz Ortega, show up. She gave some statements of support. We had other notables from large local union, sister unions in the San Francisco Bay Area. Spirits were high. We shut down 23 campuses. It was the largest higher education teachers strike in the history of the country. And I'd like to think that it was that forced them to finally come to an agreement.
I read a KQED article covering the topic, and you mentioned that the deal caught everybody by surprise on that day. Many of us know the current agreement as of today, February 9th, 2024, is tentative. Do you mind telling us what a tentative agreement is and what that means?
Well, we'd been bargaining for months in advance of the strike. It was not well communicated by our comms team at statewide. That was finally authorized by our union leadership. It was a shock for everybody. We have what is basically the product of representatives of the California Faculty Association, representatives of the California State University system, sitting down at the table and hammering out an agreement that both sides could accept. Certainly, we did not get everything we asked for. We asked for 12%. Instead, we got basically what they had offered the staff. They had been given pretty much the same deal in October, which was 5% retroactive to July 2023, and then a second 5% bump in July 2024. And then that would be followed for us, which is different, a 2.65, what's called a service salary increase for eligible faculty. Probably the biggest difference was the addition of 2 additional raises for 2 grades of lecturers. One is grade A, what's called range A, which are the lowest paid lecturers. They receive a raise of $6,000 to their base salary, and lecturers in range B will receive a $3,000 raise to their base salary. That's a full-time employee. Most of us do not work full-time, so whatever our percentage of a full-time workload called, that will determine exactly the amount of money that we'll get as a result of those 2 raises on top of the 2 5%, what are called general salary increases that I described earlier.
I really want to hone in on the 12% salary increase request. Could you remind us why the requested number was set at 12%?
Well, we were looking at inflation across the state of California, and the rate of inflation was 35% over the last decade. We've never kept pace with inflation. So the original figure that we were demanding of 12% made sense. However, that was a trade-off. People rarely get what they ask for in those kinds of negotiations. Beyond the question of salary raises, there were other issues that they did come around to, that we did get some movement from them. And remember, this isn't over. This is one round in a longer-term battle for faculty rights and for faculty compensation across the CSU system. We're back on the table July 2025. So we're going to be going through this again. I think that it's a solid agreement. It's got acknowledgement of the lowest paid lecturers needing to have their base salary raised.
Another thing that you mentioned in the KQED article is that you believe the biggest problem concerning the strike is due to the Board of Trustees that oversees the policy making for the 23 campus system being political appointees. You go on to say you got people who are business managers running a public institution. Would you mind expanding on that point a little more for us?
Not all of them are from business, but many are. They have their interests that they pursue. If we had elected trustees to the CSU, it would change overnight because suddenly they're no longer beholden to political factions. And I imagine a large part of that electorate, would not only be instructors, teachers, and professors, but also parents. If people had to put forward a platform for changing the CSU, for reforming it, for managing it, before they were given that position of responsibility, it would make it more transparent. It would make it more accountable. And I think that would have a transformative impact across the system.
Could you share with us any feedback you've gotten from students?
Students across the system, in particular on our campus, were very supportive and encouraging. We know that the Associated Students of East Bay passed a very powerful resolution supporting our strike.
To quote you one last time from that KQED article, you view the tentative agreement as a glimmer of hope. What other hopes do you have in this time leading up to that possible New Deal?
The tentative agreement is a starting point for me. I think it's solid in that we can build upon it in 2025. This ain't over by a long shot. I welcome my colleagues who oppose it to put their position forward, have an honest dialogue about it. Let me hear from them why they won't vote to ratify the tentative agreement. We're an open union. We're not a closed house that tries to corral or dictate to people. I haven't felt that way. I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful.
It's showing us what's possible. It's paving the way for us students to live a life that we deserve here in the state of California and around, the country and the world. Thank you so much, Professor, and I will follow up with you soon. I'm
Thanks,
Sarah Kassaye with Cal State East Bay, The Pioneer. Visit www.thepioneeronline.com for more student-led news.